Hello everybody, welcome to another Making It Monday. I hope you're all very well. I hope you've all had a lovely weekend, and thank you very much for watching. It's lovely that we're once again in my workroom doing a lovely little project. I hope you've downloaded Whinnie the mouse. She's absolutely adorable. Now I don't know, maybe I should give you dimensions of what these things are like, because I didn't say how big she is, but I suspect if you looked at the pattern pieces you'd have some idea. And somebody actually said it looks like a hedgehog as well because of the pins on top. I suppose you could. I don't know how big hedgehog ears are. I think they're quite tiny, aren't they? But it's whatever you want it to be. Anyway, here's Whinnie. Isn't she lovely? And all day I've been saying Winnie the Pooh. So whose bright idea was it? I was thinking of the two other famous Misses, and I kind of put a twist on that. So so I make no apology for the name. I think it's quite cute anyway. So I hope you're all okay. Please tell me what you've been doing today. Please tell me if you've been out shopping for sewing goodies, or whether you've stayed in, whether you've even got any fuel to go out. Currently I'm on fumes, and I still don't know whether I'm going to get any this week. I'm going to have to at some point. Anyway, let's have a quick look. Let's see if we're live on YouTube. It sometimes takes a little longer to go on to YouTube than it does Facebook. So I just like to give that a moment just to see if we're live. Let's have a look and see. So, oh yeah, that's good. Oh, I better turn oh, it's down. That's good. Right, good, marvellous. Let's go back to where I was before. Sorry, I'm waffling. That's because I'm filling in time. Oh, that's better. I'm live now. Now I can see it. Hurrah! Okay, now while you're watching, I don't know if you can see down on YouTube, there's on the corner there, bottom right hand corner of your screen, there's a little picture of me, and if you haven't already subscribed, if you click that, then you can subscribe and then you won't miss any. You may well think that you're 2 days late because my mistake, I put the date as the 25th. I think that was wishful thinking on my part, that I needed an extra couple of days. I don't know, I didn't need to prepare much, so I don't know why I thought that. Right, so Winnie the Mouse, that's what your pattern looks like. You've got pattern pieces as well this time, so sometimes I'll say to you, there you go, quick flash. I've got the fan on, so if you hear any noise, I've got the fan on. It's so hot in here because of my light, so I did just put that on for a little while. So yeah, so it's not very often we have pattern pieces, but we have today, and which means that you could just print that pattern page off and read the rest of it, the instructions on your device. Okay, so you don't have to waste any paper if you don't want to. I know that some people like to print out the whole thing and store them safely. Then that's absolutely fine. Once you've got it, you've got it then, haven't you? You just got the video to watch as and when you need to. But with this one, you have got to print out the pattern pieces, and I don't give measurements. I don't think there's many designers that do give measurements on little projects like this, so I won't be doing that in case you're wondering. If it's something simple or a simple shape, then all I do is give the measurements, and that's super easy, isn't it, for everybody? Right, so let's just have a quick look at comments. I'm reading comments here and they don't make any sense, but I'm going to have a look on my screen here. Yeah, let's have a look. Catherine says she hasn't got a printer. Well, Catherine, I'm going to say this, and I'm putting my neck on the line. They're actually very affordable these days. 25 quid will get you a fairly decent printer. You don't really need anything that's even colour. It just can be black and white. So I would look out for second-hand ones as well. That's always a good option. You can, I mean, obviously you can take it to your local printers, but why would you? So most of the patterns, as I said, I can't even think of a percentage. Let's say 90% of the Making It Monday patterns don't need to be printed. They can be viewed on your screen, which is a bonus, isn't it? Isn't that great? But we can't always do that because it's not always squares and rectangles. I might have to turn this fan off. Let's just do that. bless. I'm getting, my hair is all getting blown to bits here. I might have to switch it on later. Sandra says it's been all 4 seasons in one day up here, wherever you live. It's the September weekend holiday Monday. September weekend holiday Monday. So does that mean it's a bank holiday Monday? I don't know what that means. Perhaps it is. So good afternoon from Eddie from Texas as well. She says she's staying in and relaxing. Hopefully we'll finish my craft supply reorganisation this evening. I will wait and make Whinnie when my little neighbour comes over to craft next. Oh, that's the perfect project, because you know it's just such sweet. I mean, I've used it as a pincushion, but I said you could make one for your pussycat if your pussycat likes to play with toys. You could use it as just like a lavender bag to put into your chest of drawers, you know, maybe for your underwear, something like that. So there's lots of things you can do with Whinnie. She just happens to be a really super little make, and I was pleased to bring her to the Making It Monday group. Now you might notice behind me I look very autumnal today. Well, the reason for that is it's all your fault. I'm going to pile all the blame onto you because you wanted Christmas all next month. So I figured I'm going to miss out on Halloween and autumn, because obviously from next Monday we're going to have a Christmas project every week for the entire month of October. I don't know if that's 4 Mondays or 5 Mondays. I don't know. I'll have to have a look. It really does depend. I'm just going to have a quick look at my messages just to make sure nobody's trying to get me and telling me I've done anything wrong. I think we're all okay. Because sometimes they message me and they say, didn't you see my message? No, I'm busy talking to you. So I don't. Anyway, we're going to crack on making Whinnie the Mouse. And I hope you enjoy. So we're live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube. We're currently we're up to about 270 viewers on both platforms, so that's lovely. It's for Mondays in October. Oh yes, it's 4 Mondays in October. Thank you, Gemma. So we've got 4 Christmas projects coming up in October, and I figured out I'd miss on Halloween, you see, so that's why I'm surrounded by autumnal colours, because you know I thought, well, we're gonna have Christmas colours in there over the next few weeks. So there we are. And I quite like autumn, don't you? Perhaps we can resort to it again in November. And then we'll nearly be in full swing for Christmas then. Oh my gosh. Right, Whinnie the Mouse. So I'm going to try and follow the instructions, which you know is a completely dead loss. It's a lovely, lovely, easy make. There's nothing complicated. Now, the only thing I would say is I've done French knots for the eyes. If you find French knots a little bit of a challenge, I've used 6 strands of embroidery thread, so it's very thick. So even if your hands are a little bit stiff, you may be able to be okay with 6 strands. And likewise the whiskers, which I can't decide if they're too long or too short. I've got this one sort of kinks over to the side a bit. I think it needs a bit of an iron. So you please yourself how long you have your whiskers, but you could put tiny little black buttons there. You could draw in 2 black circles. You know, you've got to understand it's a pin cushion. This is not going to be an exhibit at the NEC. Okay, well maybe maybe we should have a pin cushion mouse competition at the NEC. See how we get on. Yeah, so if you find French knots a little bit fiddly, then obviously you could use a pen or 2 tiny little black buttons. You don't want anything too big. It's a sweet, cute little mouse. But they tend to have little bulbous eyes, don't they? Little round, sticky out bulbous eyes. So if you can find some buttons that look like that, good luck. But you can do that or draw them on, as I say. A little bit of pink felt for the ears. And then of course you've got the body parts, which mine are all different. So the face is different to the body, and the base is different to the body as well. So it's a nice little mishmash of scraps basically. So raid your drawers. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of scraps there waiting. So let's crack on. So what we'll do is we'll go straight away to the overhead. Hopefully I've got you in the right position. Not bad for a first attempt. In the pattern, you have these 4 pieces here, okay? You have a head part, like this that has the nose at one end and an A. Then you have the side of the mouse, and it has a B. Now, although I haven't said that in the pattern, I think it's quite obvious that A and B go together. All right, A and B go together. And this is the back seam, and this is the join to underside. It's really important that you get that correct, that you don't stitch the underside, that you're going to stitch the back seam. Okay, then you've got your ears, and you're cutting 2 of those little ears there in, well, I'm using pink felt, but you can, if you want to use grey or something like that, that will be okay. It's all right, I can see your comments now. You don't have to keep telling me. Trouble is, when you've got 300 people watching, you can have 300 people tell you it's okay. So what I was saying was, with the underside of the mouse, you've got a nose end and a tail end. Okay. Now, the other thing I was saying, which is really important, is the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stitch this back seam, okay? Now, if I bring that back in, this is obviously, like I say, this is the back seam. What I really, really, really want you to do is to make sure that it is the back seam that you're stitching, that it's not this one, okay? First of all, if you did stitch that one, this part would never fit to the underside. It would be ridiculously big. So by the time you get to stitch that together, it won't make any sense at all. So all I would say is that you stitch the back seam first, but before you do that, when you've done it right sides together, just put your pattern piece over the top and make sure that where you've pinned, you've got the back seam there. Okay, it's just that it's interesting, isn't it? Because although they are different curves, if you weren't watching what you were doing, you may well stitch the underside part. Good. Right. Now you've got me. Now you can all see me, and you've all told me that you can see me. I'm going to start stitching. So I will, like I say, I will cut that piece out so you're not bored with that another time. So we're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance all throughout, and of course I'm going to take my pins off straight away. Let's just put little Mousy there. See that whisker? It's a little bit curvy, look. And if your thread does that, just pop it under the iron, or you could trim his whiskers. They don't need to be that long. I'm just exaggerating. Good. So, have you all had a good day? Have you all been busy? Have you all been trying to find diesel and petrol and scouring the countryside for fuel? Honestly, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Just move your presser foot, lift your presser foot up and swivel your fabric around if you're on a curve and you're finding it a little tricky, and just try and keep to that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so we've done right sides together, and now you can see that that's our back seam done. Okay, and if we look at it like that, you'll see that it matches the pattern piece that you've got in your instructions. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is do the ears, basically. So I'm going to take you over to the overhead again, and this time I promise to actually move. I'll tell you what it is, and then you'll understand what happens. I'm looking at 2 screens. I'm looking at the live screen, and I'm looking at the preview screen. And I normally get the preview screen ready to move, and I forgot to move it. So, my fault. So I do apologise for my ineptitude. Right, so we've got this shape now, and again you must remember what is the tail end and what is the head end. Okay, you can all see that okay? So if we flatten that down again, obviously it's not going to be the same size as your pattern piece, but you will see that shape. And if you have a look at the pattern piece here, it's got that B, and on the pattern, if I bring it in, it says pleat the ears and place on line B, C pattern. Okay, just either side of the back seam line based in place. Right, so this is our back, what have I called it? Back seam line. So this is the back seam line going across here. And if you want to, you could open that seam up and flatten that out. But by the time you go and stuff it, it will be fine. It'll flatten out nicely. If you're not sure about it, snip into it and give it a little iron. And you can, like I say, you can open up that seam if you want. So what we're going to do is get our ears. Now this could be a little bit fiddly for you. So I want you to decide whether you want to do this or not. So what I'm going to do is just fold my ears on the sides into the middle. Now I promise you, unless you hand stitch that now, that will still wriggle when you put it under the needle, because it is quite small. You could, let's just get a couple of clips. You could, oh, 2 pink ones, that was clever. If you just keep it there for a minute, it will remember that ish. I mean, it is felt, but it may ping back into shape. This is what I'm saying about if you can manage this or not, because this is quite fiddly. And if you have difficulty with French knots, you may easily have difficulty with pleating the ears. Okay? And like I say, once you put those under the machine needle, you'll probably have to get your stiletto, and I'm just looking around for mine, of course I haven't got it handy, to actually make sure that they stay in place. Okay? Let me just move my comments down, because all I can see is people telling me that they can hear me, see me. Right, that's better. Right, so on that back seam, and it's kind of more, if we try to look at this, on the back where the tail goes, you've got a rounded edge. Yeah, are you with that? It's rounded, isn't it? If you do it on the right, you know, this is the this is the B seam. It's not rounded. It's not quite straight, but it's not far off. That's where you're going to put your ears. All right. So your ears, oh, got a tickly nose now. Just sit either side of the line. And what I might do is just pin these on or clip these on and then show you on the side view, so you've got a clear view. But I have to say, if you look at the pattern on your device, you can zoom in on the pictures just to see them a little bit clearer. See, even that's not quite central, so let's just shift it across a bit. Not bad. So can you see how that looks? And the seam, if I turn it that way, is running right down the centre, thereabouts, of between the ears. So you don't want to put the ears right close together, but you don't want them on the side of the head, because otherwise it'd look like a teddy bear rather than a mouse. Anyway, so now we're going to baste those in place. It's much easier to baste these things than assume you're going to catch them on your... Oh, such a tickly nose now. What does that mean when you have a tickly nose? Does it mean I'm going to come into squillions? I don't know who would be leaving me squillions, but, you know, there we are. There we go. I'll put my little mouse there for you to keep an eye on. So we're just going to baste it. Now, of course, you could lengthen the stitch if you want to. I wonder if I've got my stiletto handy. Nah, I've got my new scissors. I could use them. Okay. So I want you to put your foot down on your machine, and I want you to put your needle down. Now don't forget, it's a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I don't want you to go, I want you to look at this as about 1/8 of an inch, okay? About 1/8 of an inch will do. Less is fine, but not more. We don't want to see the stitch line when we come to turn it through. So I'm going to take the clip out. I'm going to try and hold it in place. Like I say, try and use a stiletto. And I've started quite a way away, but obviously, you know, be sensible. Again, you see, I'm just going to have to fiddle with this. And if the pleats do move, which they probably will, unless you really work hard at this, please don't worry. It's a mouse. Then there's my other clip out now. So I'm just going to travel along, going really slowly, aren't I? Because I don't want everything to move. That's not too bad. That the second pleat's going to stay in much nicer than the third, but that's okay. Right, so not too bad, a little bit wonky, but I'm happy. There we go. So that's what it looks like. Can you see how they sit on that seam line? That seam line is right up the centre there. Hopefully you can see it. And the ears are sitting, what, about 3/8 of an inch apart, something like that. Oh, you can have a little playmate soon. Yeah. So while we're there, while you're on the side camera, let's just spread that out nicely. We've got the head part. Now, there we go. There's the head part there. And I've drawn a little dot. Can you see that little dot just there? And that reminds me that's where the nose is. So I would suggest you do that. The dot won't show when I stitch because it's a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so it's not going to show. But I just want you to make sure that you stitch this side to your back, not the nose side. In fact, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go on the overhead because this is important that you see how you put these together. So let's just get you moved over. Thank you, Pat. Thank you. Yeah, I get them done really often, a lot often than I should, I suppose. Right, so what I do is I fold my head part in half. I give it a little crease. Now, I would be very cautious about that because if you crease too much, you're going to see that when your mouse is finished unless you put your iron over it. So I've done it enough for me to see and enough for you to see as well. So that we know is the centre of the head, which matches up to the seam that's on the back there. So I'm just going to, this isn't hasn't got a right or wrong side, but I flipped it over because that's what you would do. So let's get in my mouse because I need some pins. You can use clips if you want. So I'm pinning the centre. And of course what we're doing is that we're putting a convex onto a concave sort of shape, which is never as difficult as you think. But what I want you to do is see this edge here on the head, that edge there. I want you to get that parallel with this edge here. So you're just going to bring it over and make it parallel. Okay, so that corner sits properly in place. So I'm going to show you on the overhead what that looks like. So if we look at it here, so I don't want you to go like that. I want you to make sure that you actually twist the head so it sits 90 degrees right on top of that corner of the side pieces, let's say, the body. Okay, so it's important to do that as a 90 degree. So let's pop a pin in there. So now we've got both ends secured. Can you see? Both ends are secured, right sides together. In fact, let's just, excuse me, licking my fingers. Let's have a quick look. Yes, it shows that very clearly in the pattern. Let me bring it in so you can see. There's never enough room on a desk. This one. So this is where we're at. So we've done that pin there, we've done that one there, and we've done the one in the middle. And now if you want to, you can do one in between. And it's once you've done that, it makes it super, super easy. And just work it in. You don't really want anything sticking over the edge. You want it all to fit, and it will. You've just got to work at it. There we go. So now we've got the pins in which actually match the picture. So what we're going to do now is stitch 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around that head part. So again, you might find it a bit fiddly because this is a little project. It always makes it a little bit fiddly. So let's just move you over. What is this? Grace, I love the mouse. You never have enough pincushions. Do you know what? That's absolutely true. I can't even tell you how many pincushions I've got. I've got a lot. Well, I always have this one. I always have my Suki, which is kind of buried itself in my machine. That one there. The ribbon has gone up into the workings of my machine. Oh, there we are. So this one here, there we are. That one. I always have that one always tied to my machine, and obviously now I've got little Whinnie. They said mini. Right, so 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now what I would do with this is I would pop my needle in first to anchor it. And you can take that first pin out. So if I swing that around, there's my first pin. I've got my needle in my work. Look, I can swivel it around, which is anchoring all those pieces together. So I can take my pin out with full confidence that everything is going to stay put. Then I can put my foot down and just work my way around, taking my pins out as I go. I know these fine pins can be stitched over, and if you want to do that, go ahead. You'll never find me do it, but you know, you go ahead. I won't ever judge you. So there we are, we're practically there. So just work your way around, and also shorten your stitch length to perhaps 2. A, because we've got a curve and you don't want to make it clunky, and B, it just helps slow you down as well as create a lovely seam. There we go. So if I pull that back, and in the picture it says, note that the ears are tucked in between the seam of the head and the body piece. So if I was to bring in the pattern piece, see if I can be multi-skilled here, and you see that picture there, that's what we've just done. Okay, and then the next part we're going to do the tail and the eyes. Okay, so that's that bit done. Let's get you back to let's go to the front just for a moment and relax. Everybody okay? Having a good time? Who is enjoying making it Mondays? Is that a loaded question? Is everybody still having fun making up the projects? Because that's the idea, isn't it? Because when we started this, we were still heavily in lockdown, and it was a way of just kind of amusing ourselves once a week, and hopefully we've succeeded with that. I know some people just love to have the free patterns, and they sort of come in, go out, and that's fine. That's what they're there for. But it's lovely that we can all get together and enjoy an hour together on a Monday night. So there's my little mouse made so far. Oh, everybody's saying they're loving the Mims. That's good. Even though I'm rubbish at technology, that's fine. I can handle that. So there's the little mouse. So we're going to do the French knots and the tail. Okay, now the tail is I'm actually going to plait it, so you don't have to do that. It's, again, these are all things that are maybe a little bit more complicated for you, but I always say give it a go, see how you get on. Now look, I've got a piece of thread ready, but that's far too short, so let's just get rid of it. Now I'm using a very large needle. I can't even tell you what it is or what size, but it's first of all, it's got a large eye. Let's pop it down so you can see. It's got a large eye. It's also quite thick because I need it to make a hole to take the 6 strands of thread, because that's really quite a thick piece of thread. It's almost like wool, really, you know, yarn. So I've cut myself a length of black thread, and we'll just thread this up. You only want like one lot of 6. You don't want to double that up. So you're going to start off with a knot. Excuse me. So we've got the knot, excuse me, in the end of the thread. So however you make a knot, there's all sorts of different ways. There's even YouTube tutorials about how to knot your thread. You go filly boots. So don't forget, we've still got that crease line to help us place the eyes. Now the eyes need to be fairly close together. If we look at my little mousie, they need to be fairly close together. It looks quite cute, doesn't it? But not too near the ears, not too near the nose, just somewhere in between. And I bet if you make a lot of these, I bet every one will be different. So we're coming up, I think that'll do. I think we're coming up through the body. I'm going to go over just a little bit, hardly enough to worry, but anyway, there we are. So I'm bringing my needle up, and I'm just making sure my knot stays firmly in the back. Now this is where I have to put, can you see, I'm going to leave it on the white so you can see. And so the idea of a French knot is they're so easy to do. I don't really want you to think this is really hard. So I've got my thread in my left hand. You're going to reverse this if you're left-handed. I've got my needle here. I'm going to twist my needle 3 times around my thread. 1, 2, 3. You can see those 3 threads. And then I'm going to go in just next door to the hole that we came up through, or the hole that we made. So a couple of strands of cotton away, and I'm putting my needle down through the fabric again, and I'm kind of holding on to it with my thumb, and I'm just going to poke that needle through and then give it a tug, because this is quite thick. Don't forget we're using 6 strands. You don't have to use 6 strands, but I think it makes quite nice size eyes. And then just pull through, and then you've got one little eye done. Now the trick is to do the same the other side. So up through, don't forget I can just about see my crease line now. I don't know if, yeah, I think you can, can't you? So come up where you think you're about right. I mean, you might end up a bit sort of lopsided, but it's a mouse. I have to remember that. We're not going to exhibit at the NEC with our mouses. Now, if you use a white cotton for the face, or a very light colour, you might well see your black thread travelling across. So you could, if you wanted to, maybe knot and glue the end of the thread to secure that eye, and then do your second eye separate. Okay, so there's lots of things you can do to help yourself here. So again, I'm pulling my thread, so it's not too tight. We don't want to sort of give him a nose as such. So it's not too tight. So I'm going to put it down so because I can manage it better. So it's 1, 2, 3. I'm holding on to that so it doesn't get itself into a muddle. And I'm going to go back down a couple of threads away from where I came up. Okay. And then I'm just going to pull my needle through, and like I say, it's a little bit tough, and there we are, there's our second eye. It's not quite in the centre, but I think it'll do. It's a bit, oh, I don't know, it's not too bad. Let's do it like that so I can see. Oh, it's not too bad, is it? Looks very mousy. So then just hold on to everything so you can see what it looks like on the back. Just hold on to that, because you want to make sure that your knot stays fairly secure. And we need to make sure that we secure this so it doesn't come undone. Now you could, if you wanted to, put some glue on the back of your threads here to make sure that all stays neat. Oops. Let's have a look. I don't want to pinch those eyes together. It's not too bad. Made that a bit tight. But what I do is I just travel my thread over to the seam here, like that. And just, again, don't have it too tight, because it doesn't matter, we're going to have stuffing there, so it won't matter about this one. And then just do a couple of kind of like slip stitches, I suppose, just to hold that thread so it doesn't come undone. Because you can bet anything you like, it'll come undone if you don't do that. And then I would just cut it, you don't need to do a knot. Okay, so that's our eyes done. Are we all happy with that? So now what we've got to do is the tail. Now the tail is slightly different. There it is, I was looking for my cream thread. It's 3 strands, and the tail, just make the tail as long as you want it. The tail on my original mouse is actually quite long. It's quite long, but you might not want it that long, okay? So get some embroidery thread. Again, we're using 6 strands. So let's just find the end. Ugh. This is where you wished you'd cut it before you'd started. Hold on, I might just cut it anyway. I can't see that end at all. It's like a magic piece of embroidery thread. See, if I'd been really good, I'd have wound this onto a thingy what's it. Right, let's just cut that, and then we'll cut another one. So it's a little bit wasteful, but you never know, I might make half a dozen Whinnies. Right, so we've got 3 strands. And if you've ever wondered what I do with all my samples that I make, I've got boxes and boxes of them in my garage. And when I go to La La Land next year in Birmingham, I'm going to sell them all to everybody, hopefully. And so the little projects will be probably about £5, and the bigger projects about £10. It doesn't cover my costs, but it just means that they go to a new home, and I don't have a garage full of samples, because I won't use them again. So just if you're interested. So what I've done is I've knotted one end so it's secure, and that end will be put in the back, on the back seam then. We'll do that in a minute. But before we do that, we're going to plait it. So I'm just going to bring in my wool mat. You can use whatever you like. And just secure that end. Hopefully it is fairly secure. And we're just going to plait it. So like I say, you don't have to do this, because it's quite a fiddly little project really. It's cute and you'll love making Whinnie, but some of it's a little bit fiddly. So let's have a, it might get to a point where I give up. It doesn't have to be, you know, it doesn't have to be like Vidal Sassoon plait. Just a regular plait. And if anybody doesn't know who Vidal Sassoon is, he's a famous hairdresser. So we're just plaiting these pieces. And I left mine loose actually. Well, I started off plaiting it, and then well, it's a bit of a long story really, but I didn't plait it in the end. Let's put it that way. So it doesn't have to be tight. And you can see it's a little bit, well, mind you, this is quite a long tail. So make yourself a short tail. Now, can you see me all right? Can you hear me okay? Oh, honestly. It's funny, this afternoon I was kind of making sure the camera's all working, because the last time I used the cameras, I did a Zoom call with Kim Suleiman of Sixpenny Memories, and it changes all my setup. Everything changes, and so I have to go back into it and I have to retest it to make sure it's all okay and make sure it's all going to be good, and that I don't switch on at like 6:30 in the evening and it all needs to be reset, and you know, painful. So so I checked it all this afternoon just to make sure that all the cameras were working, and John said, well, your mic's not working. I said, no, I've got my mic off. We don't need to test that. Yes, he said, you better test it. And then he looked at the screen and he said, but you've got it switched off. I said, well, yeah, I always have it switched off to start with because I'm still setting up and blah, blah, blah. No, he said, you're going to forget. I said, well, yeah, I know. I either forget to unmute or something. I said, so, you know, just make life interesting for everybody. Right, so I think I've done enough plaiting because that's probably boring you to heck. But I quite like it. It's very therapeutic, and of course the shorter it gets, the easier it gets. I could never have had long hair. In fact, Abigail had long hair, and sometimes she would have, I think she used to have one plait. I don't think she ever had two. Anyway, look, we've done enough, surely we've done enough. So I'm just going to put a knot in it and trim off the ends to make it super neat. There we go. Good. So what do you think to my new scissors? I've got 2 pairs. Okay, I'm not selling them, so I don't think I'm getting any money for this. They're Karen K. Buckley scissors. They're slightly serrated, and they are absolutely fantastic. I'm going to hopefully get the next size up to this one. So I've got a set, and the handles are like silicone. They're really soft and they're really big. So if you struggle with gripping scissors, I think you'll find these are really nice. And like I say, they're serrated, and a serrated scissor is actually incredibly sharp. And this scissor here cuts, well, they both do, but it cuts right down to that point. Do you see how pointy they are? And it cuts right down. I don't think I've got anything I can show you. Oh, a little bit of wadding, scrap wadding. Look at that. Absolutely superb. Super, super sharp. So they're not cheap. They're not cheap. So you might think, oh gosh, I'm not going to treat myself to them. But they are absolutely the best scissors I've ever had. And yes, Audrey, they do look a little bit like Tim Holtz scissors. And Pauline says, yeah, fantastic, Lizzie, I have the 3 sizes. But I think we're talking about £20 a pair, aren't we, Pauline? So, you know, it's one of those things you've got to save up for or ask as a present. Right, so I've done my plait. So I'm going to take that off my wool mat now. Those wool mats are incredible for all sorts. So now you know the end that we started off with, and I had a little knot. I'm now going to stitch that into my seam, and now I really want you to make sure that you stitch this well. I want you to really, the knot doesn't need to be showing. I want you to go over and over this, baste that really well, because if anything's going to get pulled out of the stitches, this will. So reduce your stitch length down to 2, and I want you to stitch this in place, and we'll do that now. So let's bring the machine in. Let's put, oh, it was the wrong way around. You can't see anything when you're that way. And so the tail is going into the right side. And I'm just going to reduce my stitch right down. So you can see I'm going over and over quite a few times just to make sure it's secure. And if you can, make sure you've put it on the seam. So make sure that it's on that centre back seam. So if I flip it over, hold on, let me get that straight. You can see it's on the centre back seam. All right, and don't worry about that bite. Don't cut it off, because you need to make sure that it's anchored. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, now we've done the eyes, okay, and now we've done the plaited tail, because that was what was in the pattern. We're now going to stitch the underside to the mouse, and again you need to pin this really well, and you need to leave a turning gap on this part. It doesn't matter whether it's this side or that side, but you don't want it anywhere near that seam, okay? It wants to be on the side pieces here. And on the pattern I've shown you, I've kind of drawn on it on the fabric so you can see. But I'll put you on the overhead again, and I'll do that with you. Okay, so again, you've got to remember that you've got a nose end and a tail end, and the tail end is quite rounded, and this has got the slightest of points. And if we were to look at the pattern, you can see it's rounded here. It's rounded here where the tail is, and it's slightly pointed where the nose is. Not a lot, but again, watch it. So if we put the nose part in first, we've got our crease, so we can line that all up, bring our little mouse in and pop a pin in there and hold it. And what I've done before is I've creased my underside in half. You can just about see the crease line going down there, and pop that, or I'll tell you what, let's do it on the right sides together. That would be interesting. Right sides together, and pin where the nose is. Now we're right sides together, and tuck your tail inside. Be careful it doesn't go anywhere near your seams, and then also pin where the tail is, and then you know you've got both ends secured. Okay, you know you've got your tail and your nose in the right place. Right, so there's your tail sticking out and your nose, and in fact I put a little dot on my fabric that I know that's the nose end, and I had a little dot on this end as well on the nose there. I don't know if it's tucked underneath there. Hold on. Yeah, look, there's a little dot there. Can you see? And I've got that little dot there. It's not quite lined up, but it'll be okay. Let's just move it there. Now it's lined up. So what I suggest you do is just work your way around pinning this. I mean, you could sort of go, if you pull it and go halfway, like we did before with the head, then you know the rest of it's going to fit. It's just a case of, you know, you've got a lot of curves going on here, so you've got a lot of biases, so you know it will fit because you've got the bias, you've got that sort of stretchability, so it will fit. But still stick to your north, south, east, west, like that. And then you know that you've got that fitted, but of course we mustn't forget the turning gap. So I'm going to, if I put a pin in here, that's where I'll finish, and I'll start excuse me, here. So that I'll leave that as my turning gap. Doesn't matter whether it's this side or that side, and if you look at it there, you can see it's beyond that seam there. Can you see that okay? And then it's just a case of, you know, it's up to you how many pins you put in, or clips, or whatever you want to use. Just make it easy for you. I tend to stick the head of my pins out, so they're easier for me to take out when I'm stitching. You please yourself. Perhaps with the head seam, you're going to pop it to the back of the body rather than the front. But again, please, you do whatever is comfortable for you. We've all got different ways of doing things. Mine isn't the only way, it's just the way I do it. Okay, so there is our little mousey, all fortunately right sides together. And this is my turning gap. I haven't got a pen handy, otherwise I'd draw, but that's my turning gap. So it's a nice little gap, it's nothing too big. So let's stitch round that, and again we're going on a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I like to stitch from, let me put that in front, I like to stitch from this side rather than that side. Do you see how that looks? It's a little bit confusing, isn't it? So if you look at that side, it looks really neat, kind of looks like a tortoise. Right, so so we're starting from one of the pins. Oh, I haven't got Whinnie up here for my pins. Come along now. You've got a job to do. Sit there nicely. Don't behave. Don't get, you know, don't get too excited because you've got an audience. Now I've still got my stitch length on too, because we're sewing curves. And when you sew curves, it's always quite handy. Do you see I've got hold of the tail there as a lever? It's quite handy to always have your stitch length on a small stitch, because you, first of all, you get a lovely curve, and secondly, you're giving your toy really some strength. Now I can feel a tail, so let's just, let's just have a little look in there. It might have just been the crease of the fabric. No, it's definitely a tail. Let's just get that out of the way. Yeah, and it makes the project a lot stronger if you use a small stitch. Okay. I mean, it's a lot slower to actually sew it because of the small stitch, obviously, but it gives you much more accuracy and a much neater job. So there we go. Let's go around the nose. Now when you get to the nose, don't be tempted to do a point. I would go so far, so that's as far as I want to go, and then I'm going to lift my presser foot up, and I'm going to do a proper swivel, if you like. I'm going to do one stitch so it's straight across the nose, so you're going, you know, literally across. I'll see if I can show you when I've done, and then start stitching again. So the point is now not a point, you've got a little flat stitch there, and that will help with the shape of the nose. So for such a small toy or pincushion, it's actually quite technical. So I've come back to almost where I started. Obviously I've got my turning gap, so I'm going to show you. I'm not sure you'll be able to see if I can show you. So on the blue, let's get it so you can see. Oh my word. Right at the top, might be hard to see, but going across top there is not a point. I haven't gone, it's like a, you know, like a triangle. I haven't gone up and then down, which would be tempting. I've done one stitch going straight across, and that will help with the shape of the nose. Okay, so I'm going to turn mine into a hedgehog as I can't stick pins in a mouse. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Right, so let's just go back to the overhead, and I will promise I changed the camera. So there we are. There's our mouse stitched. So all we've got to do is turn the turning gap. Now before you do that, all I want you to do where that turning gap is just give your fabric a little bit of memory. So you're going to give it a bit of a crease. It's on a curve, so this may be the time where you have a little bit of a flat edge, but I want you to finger press, can you see, that seam back. If you can curve the seam, bravo. If you can't, I don't want you to lose sleep about it because it's a mouse, okay? And I just want you to finger press that like that, because that will really help when you come to stitch it, that you've got two lovely folded edges ready for stitching. So a little top tip there, you can apply that rule to anything. So we've got 5 minutes to finish this, guys. What do you reckon? I don't want to keep you any longer than an hour. John and I did a video the other day, and he's been editing it today, and he got it down to 1 hour and 20. And I said, oh no, I said, that's got to be a lot less than that. Oh gosh, now I've got a turning tool, bear with. Yeah, so we've got to cut more out to get it down to 1 hour. 1 hour and 20, everybody be falling asleep. So just use a nice soft turning tool, nothing that's too sharp like your scissors, and just work your way around and finger press that seam as you go round. And you can see how the tail sits really nicely in the end there, in its end, its posterior. And there we are. That's so far. There we go. So now we've got to stuff it. So okay, I've got a lot of stuffing, right? So just spend some time. Now I said in the pattern you could perhaps stuff this with wire wool. I suggest you use a dark fabric if you're going to do that, and I also suggest that you make sure that you keep it obviously dry and don't leave it anywhere damp, because obviously wire wool has a habit of going rusty, and that's good for your pins, that keeps them sharp, and your needles. Perhaps the needles can go in the head. Sorry Whinnie, I'm not talking about you. And the pins can go in the body if you like. So just take your time. If you've got forceps, which of course are not to hand, then that's handy for popping, you know, really getting it into the nose area and the tail, and you know, just shaping that out. You can see how that's looking just by shaping it with my finger. Just keep on going. And by stuffing it, you'll find that your turning gap edges remain folded. It's quite magical, really. It makes it so much easier. Now when you stitch your turning gap closed, if you want to, you could use a ladder stitch. I think we've done that before, or you can just use a slip stitch. Okay, so it's again, this is down to your confidence, I suppose, and how much you want to do just for a mouse. So one more little bit and then we'll call it a day. Let's just pop that in. It's amazing how much stuffing these little toys can take. Right, it's not too bad. It probably could do with a bit more, but look, we're kind of rocking and rolling with him. He's looking good. If I turn in profile, you can see. So let's just quickly stitch him up. I'll do a quick slip stitch, so not in the end, and I mean, a ladder stitch is brilliant for this, and you'll find that, like I said to you before, because you've finger pressed those edges, they're already in the right place. So let's just do a quick slip stitch so we can close him up. Do it as small as you possibly can, because again, this is a little delicate area, and it could be that if you're giving this to a cat, they're going to find that and they're going to break it open, aren't they? I mean, I'm doing quite big stitches because I just want to show you the effect of what it's going to look like finished. And you know, I try ever so hard to go back and do it properly, and I never have the time. So there we go. That's how it is, isn't it? Life gets in the way. So don't forget, just pull it a little bit tighter so it's a nice neat finish. Okay, and to finish it off, just take your needle somewhere else. So pop your needle somewhere else. You know, I've taken the thread and the needle right to the back, and then I'll take it out again to the tail maybe, and I'll just work that thread around the body. You don't have to pull it tight, you don't have to make it show, but then there's such a long thread on there now, that's never going to come undone. Okay, so then for the nose, let's find my big black thread again. So for the nose, it's quite cute in blue, isn't it? Literally all you're going to do is, again, you might want to put some glue on your thread. You're literally, he's got a curvy moustache again. One stitch, but like I said, you might want to pop a little bit of glue on your thread, and because obviously that can pull out, so you might want to just put a little bit of glue on. I'm going to hold that there. And of course what you could do is split all these strands up, so you could open up the strands. You know, you decide how much work you want to do, but all of this can you see, all of this can come undone. I'd have to put the iron on that to make it straight. Crushed shells apparently help and sharpen pins. Thank you, Chris. Yeah. Oh well, there you go. Anyway, there we are. There's Whinnie number 2 with a wriggly moustache. Well, whiskers. Cute. Oh dear me. There we go. Right, so thank you so much for watching again. We're just a smidge past 8 o'clock, but by the time I cut that little piece out tomorrow, it will be down to about an hour, which quite honestly, you could make these in 15 minutes, okay? But you know that I go super slow, so you can all keep up if you're stitching along. But also, if you're making this and you're watching this, you know, you're watching this video back, I'd like to think that I go at a pace that you can keep up with. That's the idea. There's no point going super fast and being a show-off. Well, who's going to gain from that? Certainly not you. And then I'd only get half an hour with you guys. That wouldn't be fair. Not on me anyway. So there's our little mousey. Where's the other one? There we go. So we've got 2. Ah, cute. They look like little ballet shoes, except they don't match. I think it's cute. I'm trying to get them so they're sitting the same. It's very difficult to look in a camera because everything is the opposite way to what you think. Anyway. So next week we've got Christmas. So according to Gemma, we've got 4 Mondays of Christmas projects. So it'll be Christmas fabrics, it'll be Christmas decorations, Christmas gifts, you know, Christmas. So I know what the first project is going to be, and possibly I know what the second project's going to be, but I still need to come up with a couple more, which will come to me because it's like magic. Something appears in my brain, goodness knows how. Right, I wish you all a lovely rest of your Monday evening. Thank you so much for watching me. It's been an absolute treat. Again, the viewing figures between YouTube and Facebook have been enormous, and when you consider we've been going for, gosh, 9 months with a little bit of a break, then I think that's incredible that you still join me every week, and we can craft along together. So have a lovely rest of your day or evening, wherever you are in the world, whatever time it is. I hope you all have fun. I hope you all enjoy this little tutorial, and I'll see you all again next week. I'll leave you with the picture of the project. Night, everybody.